to be the first from Africa. That's quite a first. Okay, the topic basically is all about gamification, and obviously about Moodle. And one of the reactions that I've always found from teachers, because I'm a Moodle fanatic at my school, is that they find it very difficult to get into. They say things like it's such a steep learning curve and it's way too difficult. And then they say things like, it's just too boxy. Edmodo is far sexier. It's more like Facebook and so on. And I've never really understood that, because all the power that you have with Moodle, the ability to shape the HTML and so forth, I think gives it quite a lot of appeal. So when I was looking at how to gamify my classroom, and I was doing this for a particular reason, which I'll get into just now, Moodle seemed to me the obvious answer because of all the power it had. And I would never have dreamed of considering something like Edmodo or Google Classroom, which seems to be sweeping through my school at the moment. So why gamification? I'm a gamer, a very bad gamer. I don't play very much, and I mainly play role-play games. So I don't play that much on computer. I run a mind sports club at my school and at the school where my kids attend. So I'm around gamers a lot, watching them playing games and seeing how absolutely engaged they are and the kinds of auxiliary behaviors that they get into. For example, going onto the forum and forums that they create about the games and discussing those games. And I see boys who I'm sure their English teachers say that these guys probably couldn't write. And yet on the forums, they are posting reams and reams of stuff, all about the games that they're playing. So I'm very interested in the whole question of how can gaming or games be harnessed for educational purposes. This particular quote that's on the screen, can you all see the screen, by the way? Is that coming up? This comes from, good, that comes from Gartner, and they talk there, very interesting. The normal definition is something like the use of game mechanics in non-game situations. But what I like about this particular definition is it talks to experience, designing an experience to engage and motivate people to achieve their goals. And so that's really what I wanted to set about doing in my Moodle course. So I think there's a fallacy out there that points and badges and leaderboards, that's all you need to create gamification. And sure, those are mechanisms, and I think they can be useful, but I don't think that should be the heart of any gamified experience. Now, Moodle, of course, with its badges, actually makes that quite easy now. Leaderboards, not so easy. You have to create spreadsheets and feed the data in and then update it and so on. So, in terms of leaderboards, you can't really do that with Moodle. But certainly the badges I found, kids have found that motivating. I remember the first badge that went out, and the kid said, "What's this?" And that particular kid immediately went out and got several more. So obviously they enjoyed the experience. So gaming, what are game mechanics? How do they work? And this particular quote talks, first of all, about rule-based systems, that games are obviously defined within a set of rules. They don't freewheel all over the show. And I suppose in that they are very similar to classrooms. Classrooms are also rule-based systems. It talks about simulations, and I'm very interested in simulations in classrooms. I've been doing them for years and years and years as a history teacher, as an English teacher. And it talks also about exploration and learning the properties of possibility space. And I love that term, possibility space. And I just wish that our classrooms were more possibility spaces, because very often they seem to be impossibility spaces, with people focusing on the constraints of the classroom rather than on what it could be. One of my big inspirations is Jane McGonigal. And I don't know if you've ever heard her TED Talks. I put a link up on this course to one of her most famous TED Talks, but all of her talks are absolutely brilliant. And of course, her book, Reality is Broken. And I would urge you, if you haven't, to go out there and listen to her talks. She talks about the four powers. She terms them superpowers in some of her articles as well. The powers that games have that relate to learning. And she lists four of them: urgent optimism, social trust. She also talks about social fabric, blissful productivity, and epic meaning. And it seems to me that these are very, very useful ways of thinking about how to gamify a course, how to bring game elements into your classroom. So just a brief discussion of those. Urgent optimism. When a gamer enters a game, they are optimistic. They're not thinking about failure. They are thinking about the success that they know they can have. And they are urgently looking around for new tasks. They manage to do something. They're immediately looking around, what else can I do? And I mean, that's so sadly lacking in many classrooms, including my own. Kids just don't run around all day trying to find more and more homework to do. So that sense of urgent optimism, if we could get that into our classroom, wouldn't that be great? Social trust, or social fabric, as she talks about it. Games are very collaborative. Certainly multiplayer games are very collaborative. Parties in Dungeons and Dragons, for example, need to work together. In World of Warcraft, war bands work together. And you need to trust in all members of that group, whether they are newbies, whether they are very experienced at the game. Everyone has their role to play, and a great trust is placed in everyone. I can see that especially in the gaming club that I run. New kids come in and they are nurtured, they are mentored, they are helped, because when you're playing with them in a team, your team's success is dependent upon them doing well. And when I look at in classrooms, when groups are formed, very often the first reaction is, how can I actually get ahead of the fellow students in my group? There isn't that same sense of collaboration. Some students can't even work in groups and try and hive off and do it on their own. And there are very frequently fights within groups. Blissful productivity. How often do we see that in a classroom? That kids will be involved in a game for hours and hours and hours. And I remember a friend of our family, their kid was on Ritalin because he couldn't concentrate. In front of a computer screen, he could concentrate for hours and hours on end. So this sense of being happy, being in the flow, and being productive in the game, if we could get that into the classroom, wouldn't that be great? Epic meaning. Education is so often almost devoid of meaning. It seems more like an academic exercise rather than something that is truly meaningful. In a game, you're saving the universe. Every task seems to have is tied into this greater sense of bringing down a tyrant, saving the universe, whatever it is. So I think these four powers of games are very important as a lens for helping us think about what we should be doing in our classrooms, and hopefully how we can go about trying to achieve that. Okay, just a further word on game mechanics. I mean, you've got single-player games like Patience, and in a game of Patience, you play by yourself according to a set of rules. To my mind, games are far more successful when they're multiplayer. One of the games that I personally play a lot is the game of Diplomacy. I don't know if anyone knows that game, but 7 players. The game mechanics are very few, and the game works on negotiation. You have to negotiate your way into a win. And so the central mechanic really is other players. And to my mind, that makes for the most engaging and rich setting for any game. So that's really what I wanted to try and get into my Moodle classroom. Does it have to be immersive? If you think about computer games like World of Warcraft, I mean, they are tremendously engaging. They are multiplayer worlds where people are encouraged, and you do well if you cooperate with other people. Do they have to be this immersive in terms of, if you look at that screenshot, I mean, the eye candy there, being over 50, I'm afraid I just don't understand it, but the kids do. And each one of those little icons has an almost instantaneous meaning for them, and they're able to manipulate all those symbols at great speed. But I think far more immersive really is the imagination, the human imagination. And in the classroom, where we are very often lacking in that really immersive environment that you can get in a computer game, you've got imagination. You can always call on imagination. So what I was trying to create in the game that I set up was this kind of immersive but imaginative world. So let's start looking at the game itself. Context first. I teach computer skills and I teach English. We find in grade 8 and 9 that girls, it's an all-girls school, come into the school and they don't have the requisite computer skills that they actually need. I mean, I think there's this big fallacy of digital natives that you can just throw a computer at a child and they're able to use it productively. They can't. So the accounts teacher wants them to use a spreadsheet, doesn't really have the time to teach them how to use a spreadsheet. So certainly at Redeem, what we do is we have separate computer skills classes in grade 8 and 9. South African primary schools, generally speaking, don't offer computer skills. So when they get into high school, we have from our feeder schools some who do, and then many girls who haven't really used computers, especially programs like spreadsheets. So we put them through a very rapid kind of syllabus in which we do Office suites, we do the Adobe packages, we do things like video editing, green screen and stuff like that. And then, of course, information literacy, e-safety, copyright, citation, search engines, etc., etc. So in that 2-year period, we try and give them as many skills that they can use in their other subjects so that they can then use it in an immersive environment. So having kids coming from many different backgrounds with very different skills, you can imagine that a once-a-week class, you've got some who race ahead and others who really need a lot of help and support. So what I try to do is create an online game. The idea being once they've done the task in class, they can then go onto the game. And the game is supposed to further their computer skills in all of those packages. So over that 2-year period, they can go on and play this game using Moodle totally online, and of course getting any support that they might need from me in the classroom. So I try to inject, first of all, that sense of epic meaning. I call the game the Mobius effect, and the conceit basically is that there is this big problem, the universe is under threat, and the geek girls are needed to save the planet. So the first thing that they need to do is to go on and read the mission statement. So they would click on the mission statement, and you'll notice that this has been set up with a branching structure on Moodle. So once they've read the mission statement, they would then download a file, a template, to create their own dossier, where they would add their own avatar, give themselves a name, and so on. I believe it's very important in terms of engaging in a game to to have a character that you're playing with, an alter ego, an avatar that you're playing the game with. I think that helps you immerse yourself in an imaginative environment. And then they would then upload their dossier, so they would submit their dossier, and as soon as they've done that, they start earning experience points, which you can see here on the screen as XP. I don't know if any of you have ever played Dungeons and Dragons role-play games like that, but they basically work. The imaginative world is created by the dungeon master, by the games master. The party, the other players, then say what they are going to do, and the dungeon master adjudicates that. That can be very free form, or it can be very rule bound. When I'm a dungeon master, I like to throw the rule book away and basically take everything on its merits and just thumbsuck a likelihood of success. But there should always be likelihood of success and likelihood of failures. I always play lawful characters. So as you work through tasks in that imaginative world, your dungeon master gives you experience points, which allows you to level up and get more skills and get more magic spells, more money, equipment, whatever it is. So the whole idea is once you've uploaded your dossier, you are then ready to start playing the game, and you get some experience points. Okay, so I like fake Twitter accounts. As a teacher, for example, I've done things like getting the students to produce a Twitter play, the Merchant of Twitter, where they take characters from the play and then over a 5-day period or a 2-hour period or whatever it is, they then tweet their way through the story in character. So for this, I set up a fake Twitter account for Professor Jane Muller. She's a totally fictitious professor of astrophysics at Harvard. And the whole idea was that by having a fake Twitter account, she could then actually interact on the Moodle page if need be. So I could then, acting as a games master, through the mouth of Jane Muller, tweeting through her account, and her tweets would appear on a Twitter feed on the Moodle page. I could then intervene and inject other elements. So if, for example, if people, well, I'm jumping ahead, but there are clues and things in the game. If people are not getting the clues, she can intervene and help out. Or if people are getting the clues too easily, she can throw red herrings in the way, which throws everyone off the track. So I love using these fake Twitter accounts. Twitter doesn't like it. I've had my own account frozen once because obviously they picked up the same IP address, and I had to explain myself, and they seemed happy with the explanation. I really think we need pressure for teachers to be able to register multiple Twitter accounts for things like tweeting Shakespeare plays or whatever it is. So she kind of establishes the mission, and she has a persona. I'm hoping that the students have created their own persona in their dossier. So here's an example template. You'll notice the little tick box. I love that, where you tick to accept the mission. Websites like Cartoonize, it's quite a nice little exercise. You can get the kids to upload their pictures onto Cartoonize and then play with the photo effects and so forth, or you can get them to use Photoshop to do it. And this creates an in-game identity for themselves. They can then put their badges into their dossier, pasting the image of the badge in, etc. Once they've uploaded their dossier, they then are assigned to a team. So as I see them popping up, I place them in teams. Sometimes strategically, you want at least one good student in a more experienced student in a team with students who are maybe not familiar with all the computer packages. So these teams can be set up as separate chat rooms, which is a fantastic feature for Moodle. If you think about it, You don't have to have one big chat for a year group. You can break it up into classrooms, and you can break it up into groups. So that is a really fantastic ability to allow them to talk about the clues that are from the game, how to solve them, and so on. So once they've started that, they can then go into, and I've shown here just one level, and this is all to do with spreadsheets. So I have a different level for the different packages. So level 1 is for spreadsheets. I like to start with spreadsheets and get that out of the way before the more fun Adobe packages. Also, I think it relaxes parents. If parents feel that their daughters are getting solid computer skills, they don't mind so much when later on they're coming back with wild tales about what they did with Photoshop and so on. So you'll notice there's a badge there. Once you've completed all these assignments, and obviously it's set up that way in the badges module, that they successfully complete all the assignments, they obtain the badge. You'll notice there's a need some help section where there are tutorials which I upload. And each of those tasks, you'll notice there, what are there, 5 spreadsheet tasks there. That's what I've got there at the moment. You can, of course, add many, many more. So you could have 20 spreadsheet tasks, or you could have even less, depending on the scalability. They would download each of those, and when they download the spreadsheet task, you'll see in a moment, the spreadsheet itself tells you what you need to do. You fix the spreadsheet and then upload it again. And I find that mechanism works very well. So some of the more experienced students or more motivated students in about an hour period will easily work through 5 of these spreadsheets. Students who are struggling more with Excel and needing more help to do it might take a good deal longer. But because it's in a game format, they can move pretty much at their own pace. You'll notice about the middle of that screen under your assignments in gray, because it only appears once you've submitted all the spreadsheets on the branching mechanism in Moodle, there's a puzzle. So for each level, you receive a bit of puzzle, and the puzzles are designed to slot into each other. So for example, the one will allow you to develop decode a message. Decoding that message will allow you to solve the next clue. So although these levels could be taken in any order, and there's a link to the Moodle course which you can access on guest access. So if you access it, you can see that there are many different levels. You can do those in any order. So a student could do one spreadsheet, move on to do a couple of databases, do some Photoshop, and then come back. But you only receive the badge if you've completed all of the assignments in this level, and you only get the clue if you've completed all the assignments in this level. In terms of, here we got the spreadsheet, so you can see what I mean by that. So again, here's Jane Muller, and she's got an instruction. For this particular one, they've got to, it's a time calculator. So it works out how you can type in a time, and then it counts the time down in hours, minutes, seconds. Okay, so they would complete that and upload it. How do I assess all of that? It's an all or nothing assessment. And the grades are essentially the experience points. So for example, if you did the first one, which is weight and mass, you can see if you haven't done it or it's done incorrectly, it's 0 points. If you complete it absolutely perfectly, you get 20 points. So, and students are allowed to resubmit. So I will look at their assignment. If it's not completely okay, I give them a little note in the grading window telling them what's wrong, and they can then resubmit it to get the experience points. And I think that's a very useful game mechanism because it allows students to retry. You don't fail. A failure is part of the process. Failure is part of learning, but you never fail completely. And then I could, and I have in some years, used those grades as those experience points as their term mark. And of course, as you get to each level, the badge is awarded once you've got 100% of those assignments submitted. The badges, I think, are very simple. And they kind of try and fit the character of each of the packages. And here's an example of a clue. So all the students see when they download the puzzle is that text. And there's no instruction. So one of their first tasks is to figure, well, what are we supposed to do? And that can take, quite a few days until they work out, well, obviously there's some kind of substitution code. My little clue there is the apostrophe. The apostrophe will indicate that it must be a word. And, a word with that many letters, you can start breaking open the clue. Obviously, the way it works is the group can work on the puzzle together, because if one member of the group, and Moodle is absolutely brilliant at this, only one member of the group solves the clue, they all get the bonus for it. So collaboration is encouraged in this way. I equals T, I'm not sure, I can't remember. And then lastly, the puzzles obviously build up to a really epic puzzle. And this is an example here of a much later clue. Jane here is saying she thinks she's known what's going on. Aliens are transmitting destructive laser beams, wah, wah, wah. And then there's a kind of clue. They would have had to do other clues to solve this puzzle. And that's basically the structure of the course. How has it gone? Well, there have been problems. I think one of the big problems is in the team. The team would be me. I'm the only teacher teaching computer skills. So the other teachers in the IT department teach IT as a subject to matriculation. In terms of failures, of things that have gone wrong with this course, I think the very first time I presented it, it was without a lot of the background clues and puzzles. So it was more about submitting the tasks and getting the badges. And that really didn't work. It wasn't motivating enough. The injection of the clues, the injection of the avatars, and in the Geek Girl dossiers, and the injection of the teamwork, being grouped together in teams, made this a lot more popular. They would jump into it a lot earlier and use it a lot more. It's totally voluntary, so it's after they finished their regular work. I'm thinking of moving it into just one, that this is the only thing they do. But it's nowhere built enough and nowhere ready enough for that yet. Basically, it's just a little over a year. So I ran this for the first time last year. The year before, I ran a pilot, just a few levels. Is it working at the moment? Well, I've just launched it with the grade 8s and 9s. We've done a solid block of work. They have their midterm exams coming up, and I've kind of handed it over to them as a revision process and something that they can now do in their free time. So I'm not entirely sure how it's going to be received this year. Last year, I had kind of slow pickup. It took a while for students to realize that it was available, that they could work on it, and that I would turn a blind eye. If they were doing this rather than other work in class, I wouldn't mind too much. And as soon as that control, I think they got a sense of control over it, there was quite a bit of excitement whenever a clue was solved. So I think there's enough there for me to suggest that this pilot, can go live, can go mainstream, and that I can actually base term marks and report back to parents, etc., solely on this game, rather than just something as a sideline. Rodin is a very high achieving school, we're explaining to parents that you're playing a game in class. You've got to have your ducks in a row before you do that. And I think I'm just about ready to do that. I think that's about all I have to say. So open to questions. Okay, the parents part, Guido. Because the school is very high achieving and very much, its matriculation results are amongst the best in the country. Parents choose this school because it is known as an academic school. There is a huge concentration, even in grade 8 and 9, at the beginning of high school, on students doing very well. For example, as an English teacher, I have parents coming to me with almost tears in their eyes. Their daughter is getting 78%. They're so worried about her English. And I think, oh my God, she's getting 79%. Surely. But they are very concerned about that. So we need to put their minds at rest. Inspiration. Inspiration is Dungeons and Dragons, really, and what I did in English classes prior, before computers came in, really. I found it very useful for second language. Because for many years I was a second language English teacher, and I wouldn't create fantasy worlds. I would create more sort of modern worlds, gangster worlds and things like that. And students would work in groups, and they would be given puzzles and things. They would be working on it, trying to sort it out. When something had to come to a head, I would come around and answer their questions and say, yes, that's right, or no, your truck has now crashed into the ravine, you're all dead, start again. So my inspiration really was role-play games. Would anyone like to take over the mic and perhaps share any experience they had? Block XP. No, I don't know about that. What is that? How long did it take? It took a little over a year. Yeah, I will click the link. But I thought you might want to explain to everyone about it. Can I give you the mic? No. I haven't received feedback from students about ideas for clues, but that certainly, would be I think, a way to go, to hand some of that ownership over in the games clubs that I run. There are weekly role-play games where students take turns at creating their own games, and so I see that with great excitement, what they do creating their own games. In terms of a class which is once a week with high pressure to succeed and to deliver, I'm not quite ready for that yet. Okay, looks good.
Hi, Dorian. Can you hear me? I didn't realise my mic was on. It's Natalie speaking. Yeah. Dorian, you're the one I want to chat to, and you're the one not answering me. Everybody else can hear me. I wonder if he's gone. He's muted. Well, I just want to say what an awesome inspiration Dorian's been. I've been following his blogs for quite a while, and I don't remember how we initially connected.
Sorry, I got
You got
disconnected
disconnected.
from
It's all right. I've been chatting in the meantime, holding the fort. It's Natalie Denmead or Moodle, you might know me by here. I just wanted to say thanks so much for sharing all of that great work that you're doing. And I was just saying, I can't remember how we initially met. Was it through the gamification MOOC with Coursera? I know you've been in my social networks for a few years, but
I did
can't remember
the
what the
gamification.
initial connection
No,
was.
no. Sorry.
So it's great to
That
have you
Coursera
share.
course I found very, I would certainly recommend it.
Yeah, I think that's where I initially picked up your work, and I've been reading your blog posts for quite a while now and following what you're doing, really enjoying what I've seen you do, and what I've been doing myself is every time that we achieve something, we go back and spend more and more hours taking it up to the next level, which is there's a bit of irony there because we think that technology is going to
Yeah.
save us time so that we've got more time to go to the beach and do nothing, but we don't. We get back in there and we do more and more and more, and we just take it up and up. And it's great what you're doing here. I'm sure everybody's been really inspired by it.
Well, thank you. It is very consuming, and yet I still believe technology saves us time. I think once we, if we ever get them working,
And
I
you
think
mentioned
ultimately it will.
you mentioned the parents and the students and how they have expectations of education, and how you've managed to bring this up to a level where you're feeling confident to introduce it to them. And I'm wondering, how do you convince them? Do you make an emotional argument or a statistical argument? You're obviously doing something entrepreneurial and innovative, and I'm wondering how you go about that change management from traditional assessment.
I think it's about if you are even within a game environment, if they are producing spreadsheets with VLOOKUPs and conditional formulae and and all of the traditional skills sheet, and you've got that to show the play your daughter did. I could you.
Yeah, so you're
I
getting
think
the end
the problem
result.
is
You're getting the
if
end
you've got a
results,
game,
and
you can't show parents what they've done. Yes, I find that many of the students, when they're free to take on as many examples as possible and they're motivated to do that, can take on very hard tasks and successful at it. Whereas in a classroom where the quiz is this for marks, and the moment you say no, the eye and then move on to something because it is such a results-driven school culture and ethos that we have. So I'm hoping gamification in some way even isn't for marks.
yeah, I've recently been speaking to some Australian people who have been managing a school in Tanzania for the last 10 years, and having deeper talks with them about what's going on there, I've realised that this in countries where there's a thirst for education and a thirst for knowledge, it does become very results driven for them, at least it's sounding like for you as well. So the principles of deeper learning and broader learning and critical thinking are a lot harder to explain to kids who just want to get that piece of paper. And I can see that gamification does that because it really rewards exploration and discovery and puts the onus back on people to set their own objectives and then feel such joy in discovering it rather than just doing what's asked of them and moving up to the next level.
Yeah, I think I mean, the Gene community is a very affluent community, so concern for the students is good and places, and that driven is very, very important to them because they have for beyond just getting a piece of paper, just distinctions they've got on is to them. I found in high school a lot more food to be and to, I'm sorry about this.
Yeah, the audio is dropping out. Maybe I'll just try to turn my mic off and see if it makes it better. So, Dorian, you have that for a minute and I'll turn my mic off and see if it makes a difference. And if it doesn't, I'll jump back in and continue that thought.
I'm saying that the Redeem community is a very affluent students' concerns or overseas universities. It's part of the kind of break from South Africa. They love it and so on. And the achievement number of distinctions is vital to them. Before I was working in school, where I can really obviously working in school where getting that piece would be much more, and yet I found there was much more room to experiment many things because when the kids parents really didn't understand education. They handed they would barely attend parents' evenings and everything over to and say you get on with it. So more room play with in inner city schools. Can you hear me at all? Is it working? I don't know. Can you hear me? Okay, talking. I know I do that. Okay. Any more questions? Okay. Oh. You hear me? Hello.
Hi, can everybody hear me? Is that working okay? Oh, good. Okay. I'm just going to jump in here. Firstly, just to say, Dorian, thank you so much. That was a fabulous presentation. It's a shame towards the end here, we're obviously having a problem with the audio. That sometimes happens. It could be anything. But at least we've got through the presentation and it was absolutely fabulous. Thank you so much. And I'm very impressed with our first African presentation. Don't forget that we can still go on the forums and we can still discuss things, obviously. And Dorian, you could probably answer questions that way. For those who are interested, you can actually see this again tomorrow. You'll have a look at the schedule. I'm pretty sure it's tomorrow, isn't it, Dorian? I think it is. So just have a rundown. You should be able to see it again tomorrow. So if you did have urgent questions and you really want to talk face-to-face about it, well, not face, well, like face-to-face, just pop on tomorrow. Maybe you can watch the session again and see how it goes then. I'm just going to say thank you now. I'll keep the recording going for another 10 minutes if you guys want to chat. And then we can look at sort of moving on to the next session as well. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.